Okay, hello. Hello, good day. Episode 8 na tayo or lesson 8 here in Biopsychology, and for this lesson, ang pag-uusapan natin is the biopsychology of sexual attraction. Actually, parang connected to sa previous lesson natin which is about sex differences. Now we talk about attraction in the biopsychological perspective. Okay? Now, opening question, baka may nagtatanong sa inyo, no? Why should I study sexual attraction if I am studying psychology? Baka kasi hindi nyo makonect, no? Anong kinalaman ng topic na to sa pagiging psych major mo? I have the following reasons. Number one, this is important because this is a psychological process. I'm talking about attraction. Proseso kasi yan na psychological. From the term attraction, yung kanyang suffix is ION, meaning it is a process. It is an event na nangyayari na dapat concerned ka. Dahil psychological process yung attraction, bilang isang psych major, dapat naiintindihan mo kung paano nangyayari ang attraction in the biopsychological perspective. Lahat ng psychological process na nangyayari dapat merong pakialam ang isang psych major. Another reason why this is important because it is a big part of who we are. Paano ko nasabi that it's a big part of who we are? It happens to us every day. Yes, believe it or not, as a human being with a psyche, we feel sexually attracted to other people, whether you admit or not. And that happens every day. Hindi ang sexual attraction kasi hindi lang naman siya nangyayari towards someone na you are intimate with, such as your wife or your husband. Kahit meron ka ng wife, meron ka ng husband, mafe-feel mo pa rin yung sexual attraction, no? Pero syempre, hindi natin sinasabi na magiging justification yon para mag-cheat kayo sa current relationships nyo, no? I'm just saying here that this process called sexual attraction is a big part of us, that we feel this thing every day. Kahit sa mga tao na hindi mo husband or wife, nafe-feel mo yan. Or even simple visual stimulus, nafe-feel mo yan. Nakakita ka ng attractive guy o ng attractive girl, most likely, you are going to feel certain degree of sexual attraction. But then again, it doesn't mean that you can do anything you like sexually simply because this is a big part of us. Mamaya pag-uusapan natin yung moral implications of this sexual attraction that we are feeling. Where do you draw the line between you being a sexual being and morality? Pag-usapan natin mamaya yan. Another reason why this is important to study as a psych major is it gives you personal understanding. Don't you agree? Kapag naiintindihan mo why you are sexually attracted to these people or to certain people, that can give you an idea about who you are. Right? Like, halimbawa, bakit madalas na sexually attracted ka sa mga tao na mapuputi? Or sexually attracted ka sa mga tao na strong ang personality? Or sexually attracted ka for some reason sa mga opposite sex na mas matangkad sa'yo or mas maliit sa'yo? May mga implications yon about yourself that you will understand if you study your own pattern of sexual attraction. Even the reverse. Pwede mo ring gamitin to further understand yourself. Why are you turned off? Yun yung kabaliktaran ng sexual attraction, no? So, na-turn on ka, that sexual attraction, na-turn off ka, ibig sabihin wala kang sexual attraction sa mga taong yun. Bakit ka na-turn off sa mga tao na blank? Why are you turned off to people who have long hairs? Why are you turned off to people who talk a certain way? Ayaw mo ng maingay, ayaw mo ng madaldal. Why are you sexually turned off? Again, these things can tell you something about yourself. And last one, number 4, this is very much like of an application na, no? When you understand sexual attraction, you can use this knowledge to improve your own mate value. Ibig sabihin, pwede mong gamitin yung mga matututunan mo dito to increase your likability of being a partner to other people. Magiging marketable ka in the mating market. People are more likely to like you because you know what to do for you to become sexually likable. In fact, we can connect this to Abraham Maslow. If you remember his hierarchy of needs, right? Yung love and belongingness, yung esteem needs, these are very social needs. You need other people for this. They need to like you. Question, does that happen automatically? No. May mga prerequisites yan. Meron ka mga bagay na dapat gawin at hindi dapat gawin for you to be liked by people para makuha mo yung esteem needs, para makuha mo yung love and belongingness needs. Now, what are those things that you need to have for you to be liked by people? The answer to that question, may kinalaman yan sa iyong sexual component. What are the things that you should do for you to be sexually attractive in the eyes of other people so that indirectly you can get the social needs from Maslow's hierarchy? Alright? So those are the 4 reasons why it's very important for a psych major to be concerned about the biopsychology of sexual attraction. Now, in the next part of this lecture, bibigyan ko kayo ng 4 big ideas about the biopsychology of sexual attraction. And then we are going to close this lecture with some applications na manggagaling from these big ideas. So what are these 4 big ideas on the biopsychology of sexual attraction? Number 1, sexual feelings are not bad. Let me repeat. Sexual feelings are not bad. Kapag may nararamdaman ka sa katawan mo that is very sexual, that does not make you a bad person. Kasi believe it or not, may mga tao, ganyan yung framework, ganyan yung pananaw. Kapag nafe-feel nila yung mga sexual urges, they feel guilty about this. Feeling nila parang sin ito against God or God is angry at them by having these feelings. Hindi dapat. Sexual feelings are not bad because sexual feelings, sexual urges are what? Natural. It's given to us by nature. This is the way God designed us to be. Believe it or not, sexual urges, ang gumawa niyan, God Himself. Many people will find that offensive, no, to associate God with sexual urges, but that's the truth. That's the way we were created by God. Na meron talaga tayong mga sexual urges as His creation. Natural sa atin yan. And what are some of these evidences to say that these sexual feelings are natural to be felt by us? Number 1, yung ating sexual desire. Did you know that a large part of our sexual desire can be explained by things in our body? Kaya meron tayong neurobiology of sexual desire. We can explain why we feel sexual desires by using neurobiological explanations. Merong mga elemento sa katawan natin na nakakapagpaliwanag why we feel sexual urges. Like for instance, hormones. Part yan ng neurobiology. No? When we talk about hormones, may mga hormones that will strengthen our sexual desires, such as testosterone. And testosterone is natural. It is within our body. Whether you're a guy or a girl, microscopically, you explore your body, meron tayong testosterone levels. Varying degrees nga lang, no? From people to people, but what does that tell you? That the presence of testosterone proves that indeed we are wired to feel sexual urges. By the way, testosterone is a hormone that is very connected with sexual desire. Pag mataas ang testosterone mo, most likely, you feel a lot of sexual urges. Other than testosterone, meron din tayong limbic system. Let's go to the brain. From the hormone, let's talk about the brain. Limbic system is the part of the brain that, according to biopsychologists, regulate our sexual functioning. And that includes sexual urges and sexual desires. So kapag nafe-feel mo na meron kang urge to have sex, most likely yung limbic system mo is very active at that moment. So ang bottom line lang dito, again, in this point is, hindi tayo dapat mag-guilty when we feel sexual urges because neurobiologically, biopsychologically, this is natural in our body. Even in the Bible, no, this idea is very consistent. Look at what Paul said in 1 Corinthians. Very familiar verse ito, no? For those of you who read the Bible, wait lang, let me show this to you. What does he say? But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. He was talking about guys here in the church. Kapag hindi nyo makontrol yung mga sarili nyo, he's talking about sexual urges. What should you do? Marry. It is better to marry than to burn with passion. Now, take note of those yellow words. Ano yung sinasabi ni Apostle Paul dito? There's nothing we can do about your sexual urges. Right? The Apostle Paul did not say, stop your sexual urges. Gawan nyo na paraan yung sexual urges nyo. Hindi nyo dapat na-feel yan. He didn't say that. Walang solution dun. That's not a problem. Feeling sexual urges is not a problem because it's natural for us. So, tinan nyo yung solution ni Apostle Paul. So, anong solution para mas ma-regulate, mas maging tama yung expression ng sexual urges? Marry than to burn with passion. So, even the Apostle Paul indirectly admits that sexual urges is natural to us. Wala tayong dapat ika-guilty dyan. Hindi siya problema na dapat nating isolve. But we need to regulate. That's why, going back to the passage, what was his solution? To regulate sexual urges, marry than to burn with passion, which tells you that when we talk about sexual urges, anong dapat? Ginagawa natin yan in the right manner and in the right context. Okay? Although natural, yung sexual urges natin, hindi masama. But that doesn't mean you can express it any way you like. You have to express your sexual urges in the right manner and in the right context. Doon na pumapasok yung marriage. Alright? So when you marry someone, it becomes the right context for you to express your sexual urges to your husband or to your wife. So dito na ngayon papasok yung moral side of sex drive. Again, let me repeat. It is natural for us to feel sexual urges. Sex drive is not supposed to make us feel guilty. It is neutral when it comes to morality. So kapag naka-feel ka ng sexual urge, is it morally right or morally wrong? When you feel sexual urge, neutral yun. Pero nagiging masama o nagiging mabuti na lang yung sexual urges mo when it comes to how you express it. There you go. By the time you express your sexual urge, that's where morality enters the picture. There are right ways and wrong ways to express sexual urges. The right way to express sexual urges, again, in the right manner and in the right context. The wrong way to express sexual urges is, ayan na, nambabastos ka na ng ibang tao. You are objectifying other human beings. You are committing a crime, nang-rape ka na. Kasi hindi mo makontrol ng maayos yung sexual urges mo, then, that's the time that your sex drive, we can say, is a bad thing for you. Okay? So again, sexual urges are normal, morally neutral. It becomes bad, it becomes good, depending on how you express your sexual urges. Alright? Second big idea about sexual attraction. There are sex differences in terms of sexual attraction. When we ask the question, kanino nasa-sexually attract ang mga males, kanino nasa-sexually attract ang mga females, that is an evidence that males and females are sexually attracted to different things. Merong sex difference when it comes to sexual attraction between males and females. Sa simpleng Tagalog, iba yung gusto ng mga lalaki Iba yung gusto ng mga babae. Iba ng standards. Iba yung standards ng yung mga lalaki, may ibang standards sila before they get sexually attracted to another person. Iba rin yung standards ng mga babae before they get sexually attracted to another person. And the question now is, what are some of these things that males and females look for from a partner for them to be sexually attracted to them? Well, ang sumasagot dyan usually is evolutionary psychology, which is a very close field in biopsychology. Close yung dalawang yan eh. There are many overlap knowledge between biopsychology and evolutionary psychology. And what will evolutionary psychology teach you? That the male brain is designed or wired to look for certain qualities from females. The same thing with the female brain. The female brain is wired to look for certain things from males before they become sexually attracted. Eh, syempre, gustong-gusto nang malaman, what are those? What are those things that when the male brain sees from females, they become sexually attracted? What are the things that a female brain is looking for from a guy that when she sees these things, she becomes sexually attracted? David Buss, an evolutionary psychologist, answers that question. So if you are into this kind of research, mahilig ka sa mga ganyang topics, no? Sexual attraction, sex differences, mate value, David Buss is the authority here. He wrote this article, Sex Differences in Human Mate Preferences, Evolutionary Hypothesis Tested in 37 Cultures. In this paper, he discusses those different things that the different sexes look for from a partner, na kapag nakita nila yung mga things na yon from a potential partner, obviously, they become sexually attracted to that person. Now, I don't want to spoil things here, no? If you want the full detail of this article, you can download this and read it for yourself. But just to give you a quick answer, according to David Buss, males usually look for females that reflect youth and fertility. Ang mga lalaki mahihilig daw sa mga girls na mas bata sa kanila. Yung physical quality ng mga girls that reflect youth. Wala pang bahid ng aging. Ayan. And fertility. Females that are very fit to carry an offspring. When the male brain senses these things from a female, most likely that male will be sexually attracted to that female. For females naman, the female brain, according to David Buss, it is wired to look for the following qualities from guys. Guys who are wealthy, powerful, malakas physically. Kapag yung mga babae nakakita ng isang guy that reflect those things, what does he say? The female brain is wired to be sexually attracted to those guys. So ang application dito, if you want to increase your value in the mating market, depending on your sex, no, these are the things that you need to work on. So if you are a girl, you work on your youth and fertility. If you are a guy, you work on your wealth, power, and physical strength. By the way, that's not me, all right? That's what David Buss is saying. In fact, let me read to you some excerpts that he wrote about this issue. Sabi niya, what males look from girls and what girls look for males as a mate is universal. David Buss is assuming universality here. Actually, halos lahat naman ng theory, no, under evolutionary psychology, ang assumption, these truths are true for all cultures. So lahat ng lalaki in all cultures, lahat ng babae in all cultures, this principle is true. Lahat ng lalaki in all cultures, yan yung hinahanap. Lahat ng babae sa lahat ng kultura, yan ang hinahanap. Now, whether you agree with Buss or not, that's besides the point of this lesson, no? Pero yun yung sinasabi niya. That what guys look for girls and what girls look for guys, it's pretty universal. Alright? Another evolutionary thinker by the name of Robin Baker wrote a book entitled Sperm Wars, Infidelity, Sexual Conflict, and Other Bedroom Battles. Ganyan din siya mag-isip. Very consistent with David Buss' lines of thinking. He says, let me read for you, surveys of many cultures around the world consistently show that in looking for a long-term partner, women prefer men who have the potential of wealth, status, stability, and durability. In choosing a man to help raise her children, a woman is only secondarily impressed by looks, whereas in choosing a short-term partner for sex, looks are much more important. So dito sa second statement, ang sinasabi ni Robin Baker, yung hinahanap ng girl from a guy will change depending if the girl is after a long-term relationship or a short-term relationship. And again, the assumption is that is universal. Kasi nga evolutionary thinker si Robin Baker, no? But going back to the first statement, very in line with what David Buss is saying about women's standards towards guys. Hindi ko na lang nilagay dito yung male standard, pero going back to this one, this part. In choosing a man to help her raise her children, a woman is only secondarily impressed by looks. Secondarily impressed by looks, yung girls. Pero if you read his book, yun din naman yung sinasabi niya, no? Just like David Buss, based on his data, it shows that guys primarily are attracted to girls by their looks. So para ma-sexually attracted yung guy sa isang girl, dapat matipuhan ng lalaki yung babae physically. Okay? So yun yung mga claims ng mga evolutionary psychologists about this issue. Okay? Very interesting field. Next, love and lust are different. This is one of the findings in the biopsychology of sexual attraction, which I think is very important for us to understand. Pinag-aralan kasi nila yung brain in the laboratory in the context of love and lust. If you want to read a study that explored the brain in connection to love and lust, download nyo na lang to and read it for yourself. But let me read to you, the most important finding that they discovered from this study. Okay? And I quote, this data, so yung this data dito, yung nakasulat sa journal article. If you want to see the data for yourself, download and read this article. This data also indicate that romantic love is distinct from the sex drive as suggested earlier because fMRI studies, meaning they have seen the behavior of the brain when it comes to love and lust. Because fMRI studies of human sexual arousal show regional activation in largely what? Different brain regions than those we saw for our participants. Or let me paraphrase this kasi medyo mahirap intindihin kung hindi mo pa nabasa yung journal article as a whole. What the article is simply saying is, the biological mechanisms, the different brain parts involved are different between love and lust. Iba yung parts ng brain na active kapag yung nararamdaman ng tao is love. Iba rin yung parts of the brain na active based on fMRI studies kapag yung nararamdaman ng tao is lust. Distinct regions of the brain are involved depending whether the person is loving or lusting. Don't you find that discovery so interesting? At ang daming mga implications niyan. Number one, iba talaga yung love from lust. Let's not intermix the two. But in our culture today, don't you agree? Mukhang wala na masyadong clear distinction between love and lust. Many people are confused. They think they are in love. All this time, yun pala, ang nafe-feel nila is lust. Right? That's why, given that idea, again, going back to that article, it's very dangerous to enter a relationship with someone na hindi pala kayo pareho ng nararamdaman, biopsychologically speaking. Again, this setup in a relationship is very dangerous. Imagine a guy is lusting on the girl. Male lusts on the female. Pero ang interpretation ng guy, love niya yung female. Ang hindi niya alam, lust lang pala yung nararamdaman niya. While the female loves the male. Oh my goodness, this is perfect ingredient for a broken heart. Don't you agree? Imagine niyo ganyan yung isang couple. Yung male, yung nafe-feel niyo pala sa female, lust lang. Pero yung female, mahal niya yung lalaki. So what happens? Fast forward, somebody will, quote-unquote, fall out of love. Who will fall out of love? The guy. Because lust is short-term. Love is long-term. So pag nawala na yung lust nung guy, it's physiologically satisfied. What happens when lust goes down? Then the guy would say, I fell out of love. Nawala na yung passion. Nawala na yung love. But then again, it was not love in the first place. Hindi love yung nawala. Ano yung nawala? Yung lust. Kasi nasatisfy na. But the guy, mali yung pananaw niya sa love. Akala niya love yung nararamdaman niya. It's not love. It was lust. And so when lust is gone, because it's short-term, what's his interpretation? He fell out of love. Ang kawawa dito, yung girl na nagmamahal. Because what the girl is feeling is love. It's long-term. She still loves the guy, but the guy already fell out of love. Sinong kawawa? Yung nagmamahal. Right? So the guy who was just lusting doon sa girl na karelasyon niya, now is looking for a new girl to lust on. While the girl na iniwan dito still loves the guy. Ingredient for broken-heartedness. Kaya dapat talaga, again, in connection to the discovery of this study, we have to really straighten out. We really have to make sure that we know, that we establish the difference between love and lust. We need to educate people about this. Na iba ang love, iba yung lust. Even in the perspective of biopsychology. Another implication of this study is, now it confirms that it's possible to have sex without love. Isa yan sa mga common questions, Pwede ka bang makipag-sex na walang love? Answer, yes. Again, in the context of that study, na iba pala yung brain parts na gumagana pag love, iba kapag lust, then it's possible that a person is having sex with someone without love. So, hindi porket may nagaganap na sexual behavior, ibig sabihin, expression yun ng love. Which is, again, in our culture, mukhang hindi yun ang tinuturo. In our culture, what is being taught is people having sex automatically means they love each other. They equate that. So, when you love each other, you are supposed to have sex. Diba ganun yung message? But given the context of this study, it's possible to have sex without love. It's possible to love without sex. You see the implications? Oh. Going back to David Buss. Ito, may sagot siya dito eh. Is it possible to have sex without love? Again, his answer is yes. And he further continues that the reason why a person would have sex would differ depending if you're male or female. May sex differences na naman yan. Why the sexes would have sex with someone. So sabi ni David Buss, for males daw, again, let me emphasize the word daw, this is not me, I am just paraphrasing what Buss is saying in his paper. Men are more likely to have sex with someone because they are sexually aroused to have sex with that someone. So ang basis daw ng sexual behavior for guys is arousal, lust, physical. Again, not all guys, all right? Not all guys, but in general, based on this data, arousal is the reason why a guy would like to have sex with a partner. While females naman, according to his paper, their prerequisite why they want to have sex with a guy is love and intimacy. So, in general, women will be having sex with someone because they love that someone. Because they feel intimate with that someone. Diba? So, ang implication nito is, again, a guy and a girl may not be in the same page. And that's dangerous. A guy may have sex with the girl because he's just aroused, while the girl is having sex with the guy because she loves the guy. Oh my goodness. So yung mga realities na yun, no, now makes a lot of sense, all because of this study. So again, I highly suggest you download this study para mas makilala nyo, mas malaman nyo yung mga findings dyan na sinasabi natin in this lecture. Number 4, fourth big idea about the biopsychology of sexual attraction: biological sexual response is influenced by external environment. How we express our sexual urges is shaped by the environment that we are in. Again, the urge to have sex drive, that's biological. That's natural, innate. Pero kung paano mo i-express yung sexual urges mo, may impluensya dyan yung environment. And one good example to demonstrate that idea is when we talk about pornography. Pornography is an environmental thing. Am I right? Sorry, wrong spelling pala ako dito. Pornography. Pornography. It is something environmental. You find pornographic materials in the environment. This is not something that you are born with, right? Okay, now, let me demonstrate how the environment may influence your sexual expression. Last 2016 and 2017, a popular porn website did a little research. They want to find out kung anong country ang madalas nagla-login sa kanilang mga pornographic contents. Okay? O pangalanan natin yung porn site na yan. Pornhub did a study on this. Okay. Now, according to their database, 2016 ang nangunguna pala raw na nagla-login sa kanila is wait lang ha. Is there you go. Philippines. 2016, Philippines topped the list. 2017, Philippines topped the list, logging in their website. And then, 2018, ito, igitna natin, Philippines is still number 1. So, let's just call this three-pit. Okay? Three-pit tayo when it comes to logging in pornographic materials of Pornhub. 2016, 2017, and 2018, we topped the list. Okay? So, yung porn site na yan, yung Pornhub, is an aspect of our environment. External sa atin yan eh. Now, let's use the biopsychological perspective. Let's ask this question. Given that kind of intensity, logging in Pornhub, logging in this porn site, ano kaya yung posibleng epekto niyan sa brain? Let's apply, let's connect the environmental to the physiological. Ano yung environmental? The porn site. Ano yung physiological? The brain. First and foremost, let's establish the fact na merong epekto. There are certain brain effects that we find when the brain is always exposed to these pornographic materials from the environment. Many studies confirm that. Nagkakaroon talaga literal ng mga structural changes in the brain that is exposed to pornographic materials in high volumes. May mga structural changes talaga na nangyayari sa utak. Specifically, let me emphasize the brain part, ventral striatum. Something happens in the ventral striatum of the brain when it is always exposed to pornographic materials. This part of the brain is also known as the reward center of the brain. Ang trabaho niyan, taga-anticipate siya ng mga possible pleasures. Keyword here is pleasure. So every time you find yourself craving to experience a certain pleasure, you are craving for food, you are craving for beauty, you are craving for sex, then that means your ventral striatum is at work. If you felt good by having a massage, nagpamasahe ka, you felt good, you felt pleasure, ventral striatum yung gumagana dyan. That's the reward center of the brain. Your ability to experience pleasure, your tendency to look for pleasure, it's all in the ventral striatum. And ventral striatum also handles what? Our sexual arousal. Kasi kung pag-iisipan nyo, yung sexual arousal natin, ano yan eh? It is anticipation of possible pleasure. Bakit ka nasa sexually aroused? Kasi yung katawan mo, na-anticipate niya na makikipag-sex ka, which is a pleasurable activity. So during those times that you are sexually aroused, the part of the brain that is making that possible is the ventral striatum. Your body is anticipating that it will very soon experience sexual activity, which is again a very pleasurable activity. Alright, so that's the part of the brain to remember, ventral striatum. Now, don't forget our point here, no? Ano yung pinag-aaralan natin dito? How brain is affected by the environment. Specifically by pornographic materials from the environment. Now, balik tayo sa ventral striatum. Another thing you have to know about ventral striatum is, it is not always active. Supposedly. Yan yung normal. Our ventral striatum, meron siyang on and off switch. It is not always on. You are not always sexually turned on. Am I right? May right context lang. Paminsan-minsan on, paminsan-minsan off. Right? Like for example, you're studying. Your ventral striatum is turned off. Diba? Kasi nag-aaral ka eh. Concentrate ka doon sa inaaral mo. Concentrate ka sa sinasabi ng teacher. Concentrate ka sa sinasabi nung module. So, naturally, during those times, your ventral striatum is turned off. You are not sexually aroused. Pero may mga times naman na mata-turn on ka. Nakakita ka ng isang visual stimulus. Let's say, an opposite sex. Nagandahan ka, ventral striatum may be turned on. Or nakakita ka ng isang poster na merong opposite sex doon na pleasurable in your sight. So, ventral striatum in that case can be again turned on. But it will not last long. Diba? Kapag dumaan na yung na-sexually attracted ka, bumalik ka na sa nire-review mo, ma-off ulit yung ventral striatum. Tapos na yung commercial na may nakita kang sexually attractive person, bumalik na sa balita, ventral striatum is again turned off. It's not always on. But here's the thing, going back to the influence of porn to the brain, studies show na ang mga tao na addicted sa porn, grabe ang exposure, grabe ang intensity ng panonood ng porn, what does it do to the ventral striatum? It destroys the off function of ventral striatum. O sa simpleng Tagalog, laging naka-on yung ventral striatum nila. Yan yung structural effect. Yan yung structural change na nangyayari as an effect of being addicted to porn. Nagbabago yung structure ng ventral striatum in such a way that it is always on. Nawawala na yung off function ng ventral striatum. Which means what? That person always anticipates pleasure. Always na. Hindi na sometimes. Always na. Wala nang off. Nasira na yung off button. Or sa simpleng term, ito yung mga taong laging turned on. Wala na silang pinipili na environment. Wala na silang pinipili na context. They are always sexually turned on. Can you imagine? Kung ano yung mga kayang gawin ng mga taong yan. Diba? Laging naka-on yung ventral striatum. They're in the church, they're sexually aroused. They are at home, sexually aroused. They are commuting, they are sexually aroused. Wherever they go, they are always sexually aroused kasi nga nasira na yung off function ng ventral striatum. And who did that? Extreme exposure to pornographic materials. See? Kaya nga magandang example ito how the external environment can influence our physiological brain in the context of sexual attraction. So lagi na silang sexually aroused. At ang masama dito, again, sexual arousal is neutral because it's natural, but how you express these sexual urges, dito nang gagaling yung issue of morality. So at this level, being sexually aroused at all times, hindi pa masama yan. Pero how you express these sexual urges that you feel all the time, that spells the difference between right and wrong. And the sad news is, most people who are in this situation, they don't know how to express this sexual arousal the right way. Ayun na. Nambabastos na, nanghihipo na, namboboso na. Kasi hirap na hirap sila doon sa influence ng ventral striatum nila na laging naka-on. And again, bakit ba laging naka-on yun? Because of pornographic materials. Oh. Kaya kung mapapansin ninyo, no? Bakit meron tayong bawal bastos law? The Safe Space Act. What does that tell you? Maybe because there are a lot of people nowadays whose ventral striatum is always on, especially in the Philippine context. Due to, again, based on the data, posibleng galing yan sa exposure ng mga tao, ng mga Pilipino sa pornographic materials. Baka marami ng mga Pilipino ngayon yung ventral striatum laging naka-on at ang cause nun, ito nga, yung intensity, yung frequency ng exposure ng brain sa pornographic materials. Alright? So what are the lessons that we can learn from these 4 big ideas about sexual attraction, body and sexual behaviors? Number 1, again, sexual feelings are morally neutral until we express it. I-re-emphasize ko lang yung lagi kong sinasabi from the very start. Sexual feelings are morally neutral. But it is no longer neutral when these sexual urges are behaviorally expressed. Meron tama at maling paraan ng pag-express ng sex urges natin. Diba? Paano mag-healthy expression? Some possible ways is you do it through channeling. Kung alam mo na wala ka sa right context to express your sexual urges, you channel it to some other more productive activities. Like, for instance, sports. May sexual urge ka, maglaro ka ng sports. May sexual urge ka, ilipat mo yan sa creativity mo. May sexual urge ka, ilipat mo yan sa pag-aaral mo. That's possible. That's a healthy expression of sexual urges. And of course, ang pinaka-obvious way on how to express sexual urges in a healthy way, you are in the appropriate context to do it. You do sexual behaviors with the right person, your husband and your wife. Some examples of inappropriate sexual behaviors, kaya nagiging immoral yung ginagawa mo. You watch porn. Bakit? You are making it harder for yourself to control your urges. Kasi nga, sinisira mo yung ventral striatum mo. Yung off button ng ventral striatum mo nawawala, kaya ka laging turn on. What else? Lewdness. Ayan. Kung ano-anong ginagawa mo sa public. Nangihipo ka na, nagi-green joke ka, maraming na-o-offend, naninilip ka ng mga naliligo, ayan na. And there are laws against that. And of course, may mga tao, because of strong sexual urges, they are unable to express it properly, they become out of control to the point they commit criminal behaviors. such as rape. Sa sobrang lakas ng sexual urge nila, hindi na nakapag-isip ng maayos. O, nakagawa ng mga karumal-dumal na krimen, tulad ng yun ng rape. Minsan nga yung rape, nag-lead pa yan sa murder eh. 'Di ba? To hide what they've done. They panic, they kill the victim. It all started with the inappropriate expression of sexual urges. So again, going back to point number 1. You really need to study, you really need to master how to express sexual urges the right way. Lesson number 2, we choose how our brains will sexually behave. That's very important. Yes, our sexual behaviors are very tied with what's happening in our brain. Totoo naman yun, as I've demonstrated in this lecture. But remember, what do we do with our brain? It's our choice. Dito ngayon pumapasok yung word na nurture, di ba? Sa psychology, may nature, may nurture. Nature yung sexual urges. Pero, kung ano yung ginagawa mo sa brain mo, how are you shaping your brain, it's a nurture thing. Pwede mong idaan yan sa environment. So, ang implication nito is if you want to control, regulate your sexual behaviors, one way to do that is to control or to regulate your sexual urges, which is possible by properly nurturing your brain. Remember my example just a while ago? Again, pornography is an aspect of the environment. It is one way to nurture the brain in a wrong way. Bakit nasira yung ventral striatum mo? Wala nang off button. Because you have chosen to expose yourself to pornography. Choice mo yun. Kaya nasira yung ventral striatum mo. 'Di ba? Again, let's apply this in the societal level, Filipino society. Choice ng mga Pilipino na mag-top tayo dyan. Top 1, 2016. Top 1, 2017. Top 1, 2018. Kasi meron tayong kalayaan, ang tao may kalayaan mag-login sa porn site na yan eh. 'Di ba? Ginusto ng mga tao na mag-login dyan. Ginusto ng mga tao to watch pornographic materials. But look at this. Their choice on what to do affected their brain. Diba? So in a way, how our brains behave sexually is also our own doing. Our brain is like that. A certain brain is like that. Sira yung off button ng ventral striatum kaya laging turn on. Bakit? Kasi pinili niya na i-shape yung brain niya na maging ganun. Kaya nga again etong data na to, hindi to dapat pinagtatawanan. Hindi ito dapat pinagmamalaki. This is not something that Filipinos must be proud of. Because if Filipinos are choosing to nurture their brain this way, their ventral striatum is wild, out of control, they don't know how to express their sexual urges, nagkakagulo sa society. Ang daming mga maling expressions of sexual urges. Hence, sa tingin ko, related tong data na to kung bakit ipinasa yung Safe Spaces Act. Republic Act number 11313. Addressing Gender-Based Sexual Harassment. Ito yung formerly bawal bastos law. Ito yun eh. Now think about this. Why is there a need to pass this law? I always say this to my sociology students, no? Ang batas, usually ginagawa yan retroactive to the need or as a response to a need. Ang batas ginagawa kasi may pangangailangan sa batas na yon. So you connect that here. The fact na pinasa tong batas na to, it means there is a need to pass this law. Meaning, marami ng bastos. Gets nyo? Bakit kailangan ng bawal bastos law? Ng Safe Spaces Act? Kasi marami na nagbabiolate niyan. Maraming gumagawa ng hindi maganda. Bakit kaya? Again, ventral striatum, wild. Bakit wild? Kasi nga, posible dahil dyan. O baka sabihin nyo, pinag-iinitan natin yung porn site na to. No, hindi lang po limited to sa Pornhub. All semi-pornographic materials have the ability to alter the functioning of the brain's ventral striatum. Kahit Netflix level lang kaya na yan. Imaginein mo, panoorin mo lahat ng palabas ng Netflix na R18. Bombard your brain with sexually arousing materials like this. Same effect. Yan din yung epekto niya sa ventral striatum mo. Mawawala yung off button niyan to the point lagi ka ng sexually aroused. Tapos, pasukan mo pa dito ng developmental issue. Isipin mo na yung nanonood niyan is a teenager. Nasa adolescent siya. High testosterone level. High sex drive. Tapos nood siya ng mga shows na yan. What will happen? This teenager will reinforce his powerful sexual urges which will have an effect on his brain. Yung ventral striatum niya na naman, out of control. You see? Pero again, sino bang pumili na manood ng mga ganyang shows? Yung tao. Yung teenager. Pinili niyang manood ng mga yan. And in so doing, it affects him or her physiologically, which will affect his or her later on sexual behaviors. Diba? Yun yung connect niyan Kaya the key question here, again, in connection to lesson number 2, we choose how our brains will sexually behave, no? How are you sexually shaping your brain? Kung gusto mong maging maayos kang tao in the way you express your sexual urges, that's your call. Paano mo sineshape yung brain mo sexually? Are you exposing your brain to the things that you are not supposed to express your brain to, such as, pornography? And other than yourself, we can also apply this to other people. Let's say, again, in the societal level. Let's talk about the youth. The young people in our schools today. Are we shaping them to be individuals who know how to express their sexual urges the right way? Are we appropriately sexually shaping our youth's brains? And in the societal level, there are many ways to do that. Diba? One of which would be proper education. Kaya helpful talaga na meron tayong sex education in schools. But I always repeat this to my students, ang sex education, it's not only the responsibility of schools. Ang mga eskwelahan dapat reinforcers lang ng sex education. The sex education must first occur in the family. Merong mga matitinong parents na nagtuturo ng mga tamang ideas about sex sa mga anak na uulitin sa eskwelahan para ma-reinforce, lalo nilang matandaan. Okay? So, again, it starts with the family. Sex education starts with the family and will be reinforced in schools. Yun ang tama. Hindi pwedeng sabihin natin, sa pamilya lang yan, sa eskwelahan lang yan. Alright? The school and the family must work together to shape the brains of our young generation. Kaya again, going back to bawal bastos law, I think this is bad news for us. Masamang balita ito. That we are not doing well in shaping the brains of our youth. The fact na meron tayong bawal bastos law indicates na marami ang nag-violate niyan. And the reason? Faulty brain. Due to, again, wrong choices. Marami mga tao, they don't know how to appropriately shape their brains. And last one, number 3, the psyche is above the brain. Parang medyo malayo to sa sexual attraction, no? Pero hear me out. What do I mean by this? In this lecture, I am not teaching that all your sexual response and behaviors are connected to biological events. Hindi ko sinasabi na, lahat ng nafe-feel mo sexually dahil yan sa neurobiological elements. Yan lang yung pinaka-reason bakit ka naninilip. Yan lang yung reason bakit ka nanonood ng porn. Kasi may mga nangyayari sa katawan mo. Again, that's very reductionistic. We are not the slaves of our neurons. Diba? Kasi kapag tatanggapin natin yung ganyang framework, all our sexual responses can be blamed to biological events, there will be no moral liability. Don't you agree? Bakit ka nang hipo? Kasi yung brain ko sabi sa akin manghipo eh. Kasi yung hormones ko tumaas eh. Hindi ko naman kontrolado yan eh. You see that line of thinking? Mawawalan ka ng moral liability. Hindi mo kasalanan. Kasi yung nangyari sa'yo, natural eh. Tumaas yung testosterone mo, gumana yung ventral striatum mo, kaya ka nang hipo. Oh, wala ka ngayong moral liability doon. Kaya hindi ito yung tinuturo ko dito. Right? Another problem in this framework is it will affect the way you connect with people. Halimbawa, naniniwala ka na yung love. Although this is not medyo malayo sa sexual behaviors, no? But the feeling of love, if you apply this or if you explain love in the context of hormones, kaya mo lang naman love yan kasi may oxytocin ka. Oh. You are not truly in love. Diba? If you believe that you love the person because your oxytocin level went up. I love my girlfriend because my oxytocin level is high. You are not truly in love. It's just a matter of time before you no longer love your girlfriend. Kasi yung hormones natin, palit-palit ng activities yan. Maya-maya mataas, maya-maya mababa. Paano pag mababa na yung oxytocin mo? Di hindi mo na siya love. Ano na naman sasabihin mo? You fell out of love. You see? Kaya hindi natin dapat ito tinatanggap yung ganitong framework. That our sexual behaviors are all about biological events. No, no, no. There is something higher than our biological component that makes the choices when it comes to sexual things. And that's what we call our psyche. Meron tayong spirito na mas mataas sa katawan. At yung spirito na yun yung gumagawa ng choice about sexual things. You see that? You see the difference? So, i-demonstrate ko, no? Meron tayong spirito dito, the psyche that we study in psychology. This psyche makes the choice, decides on what to do when it comes to sexual behaviors. And when it does, nagkakaroon ng mga biological markers. At yung mga biological markers na yon indirectly contributes to our sexual response. So I hope you get the implication. Anong implication nun? Ibig sabihin, sa biopsychology, yung mga nakikita nating mga physiological events that we connect to sexual behaviors are just what? The markers, are just the effects of the choices being made by this higher psyche. Yung mga high testosterone level dito, yung mga ventral striatum dito, mga epekto lang yun. The effect of the processes, the psychological processes that happen beyond our neurons, beyond our hormones. That's the way we need to see sexual responses. So, this framework, yung mga sexual responses natin dito, di ba? Yung mga pinagagawa mo dito, saan galing yan? Dito galing. Sa conscious choice mo. Kaya mo to pinaggagawa kasi may mga nangyayari dito sa psychological level na ikaw ang pumili. Yung hormones natin, yung brain natin dito, naapektuhan lang. These are just the byproducts of the choices that the psyche makes. So you make certain choices here, lumalabas yung effect ng choices mo sa physiological level, the brain, the hormones, and the parts of the brain, the hormones will have an indirect effect to your sexual response. But basically, all your sexual response, all the biological events here came from the conscious choice of our psyche. Kaya, given this framework, dito talaga meron tayong moral liability. Whatever your sexual response is, kung nagkamali ka sa sexual response, meron kang na-offend, meron kang law na na-violate, meron kang nasaktan, kasalanan mo. Huwag mong sisisihin yung brain mo. Huwag mong sisisihin yung hormones mo. Because you made the choice in the psychological level to do those behaviors. Even in the Bible, Jesus himself said something about this. Take note of Matthew 5:28. What did he say? But I say to you that whoever looks on a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. Paraphrase, don't look at a woman lustfully. You see? That commandment by Jesus has something to do with our conscious choice. Kaya nga niya sinasabi dito na huwag niyong tignan yung babae with lust. Kontrolin nyo yung iniisip nyo. He was talking about this, going back to this framework. Ito yun eh. Ito. Ikaw ang may control nun. Whether you're going to look at the woman lustfully or not, depends here. It does not depend on the brain. Huwag mo sabihin na, kaya ko siya nilook lustfully kasi yung brain ko sabi sa akin eh. Kasi yung hormones ko tumaas eh. Yung testosterone ko uncontrollable, kaya I cannot help it but to look at her lustfully. Wrong. You made the choice. It's within your control. Kaya nga yun yung sinasabi dito eh. Indirectly. Your choice. Whether you're going to look at the woman lustfully or not. Your choice. How you are going to shape your brain. Your choice if you're going to expose yourself to porn or not. Okay? So again, hindi ito yung tinuturo natin ha. This is so, saan yun? Ito. This is so materialistic. This is so reductionistic. Our sexual behaviors must not be understood in a reductionistic level. We make a choice about our sexual behaviors, which will determine our sexual urges. Alright? So, yan lang muna. No? I hope you learned something about the biopsychology of sexual attraction. If you have any questions, ilagay nyo lang dyan sa comment section. Until the next lecture, Sir Howard here. Have a great day and God bless. Bye-bye.